Hey friends, tonight I'm going to tell you a true crime story, gently. You sink deeper into your chair as the room cools around you, the soft whir of the fan brushing the curtains like a lullaby. Outside your window, a street lamp paints a quiet circle on wet pavement, and you can almost smell the after-rain minerals, like the town itself has rinsed off and is ready to listen. So before you get cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing the map of this little midnight community light up. Now, turn off the lights, turn on a fan for some gentle noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You step, in your mind, onto Harbor's Edge, an inlet town on the Atlantic coast, where gulls strafe the water and porches creak like old knuckles. You know the rhythm here. Sun-faded bait shop signs, a bakery that sells coffee so strong it feels like advice, and a boardwalk that groans with the tide. You're not from here, but the smells, salt, motor oil, cinnamon, make you feel like you could be. Tonight you carry a flashlight of attention, and you sweep it carefully across a story people here have tried not to see for a long time. You walk down Birch Lane, where clapboard houses sit shoulder to shoulder like neighbors who share secrets. The night is thick enough that you can hear your own breath, and the ground has that soft give of damp sand under asphalt. On your left, number 12, a yellow house with wind chimes shaped like tiny anchors. They never ring now. It's muscle memory to look at the upstairs window, second from the right. That's where, 12 years ago, someone saw a light flick on at 2:19 a.m., a light that shouldn't have been on because the family was out of town for a funeral, or so the story goes. You slow your pace because the clock in your chest is remembering the town's whispers. That was the night Elise Moran disappeared. You don't know Elise personally, but you've seen her face, senior year smile, a hoodie too big for her shoulders, and eyes that look like she's blinking into bright sun. She'd come back from college to pet sit for her aunt and water the tomatoes. She went out for a run along the pier and never returned. No blood, no struggle that anyone could say for sure. Just the echo of her footfalls swallowed by wind and water. Harbor's Edge did what small towns do. They folded the hole in the center of the story into their routines and kept going. But listen, you can still feel the town's teeth clench when you say her name. You stop near the pier. The boards flex and pop, and the ocean throws up a briny mist that kisses your face. There's a bench here with a brass plaque. You trace your finger over its engraving, that polite grief stamped into metal, and you hear the gossip radio inside your head. The boyfriend was in Boston. The aunt was attending a service 2 states away. The neighbor, Mr. Kavanaugh, walked his terrier at ungodly hours, and once claimed he heard a car door thud when it shouldn't. An oddity that never quite fits. People here swear there was a single pink post-it on the town message board the next morning that simply read 2:19, no name, no context. Did it even exist? Or is that the town's own ghost story? A way to give shape to a time no one can hold. You breathe, let your shoulders drop. Your voice is soft but steady as you guide yourself through the first threads. You note how memory works, how it fogs like glass, how fingerprints bloom and smudge with every retelling. And here's a true thing to keep your feet on the ground. In 1986, investigators in England secured the first conviction using DNA profiling in the Colin Pitchfork case. That fact sits like a compass in your palm. Science can catch up to secrets. Sometimes it just takes longer than a life. You turn your head toward Birch Lane again. The porch light at number 12 is a tiny moon off, on, off triggered by motion or mischief. You imagine Elise's last evening, a runner's playlist, a phone tucked in an armband, and the sweet bitter sting of ocean air that makes you feel both infinite and very small. You picture the shoelaces double knotted, the hair tie on her wrist. You don't dramatize. You just let the details sit. Because this isn't a blood and gore story. It's a soft one, a slow one, where the scariest part is how ordinary everything feels right up until the moment it doesn't. You walk us, yes, you past the bait shop with its mural of a cartoon marlin and into the parking lot behind the hardware store. The asphalt is pocked like the moon, with old oil stains shaped like continents. This is where the camera was, the one that never quite worked. It recorded the clip, everyone knows. A pair of headlights, bleeding across the lot at 2:21 a.m., pausing, then vanishing. The frame rate skips, as if the night itself hiccuped. On your phone's glass, under your thumbnail, you can almost feel the pixels. You whisper the question Harbor's Edge has asked for years. Was that a coincidence or a turning point? You hear footsteps your own, but softer now. The way you walk in museums. You're cataloging, curating. The old librarian's voice floats back, telling you that every town has its blind corners. And sometimes, the blind corner has a name. She remembers Elise checking out a book on maritime navigation the week before she vanished. Odd, because Elise wasn't a sailor. Maybe it was for a class. Maybe it was a whim. Or maybe it was nothing, the way everything becomes suspicious when you look at it through the wrong end of a telescope. You lean on the rail and let the cool of the metal seep into your arms. You're not a detective, you're a listener. And tonight, the town is ready to talk. It starts with another fact, the kind that doesn't break the hush. A volunteer dive team searched the inlet 3 separate times after Elise disappeared. The current here plays tricks. It braids and unbraids itself around old pilings, and it can push what's lost to unlikely places. The divers found tires, a bicycle frame, a crate of beer bottles, and, once, a plastic lawn flamingo that had been missing from Birch Lane for 2 summers. Not Elise. Never Elise. You draw in the salt air and let out a thought that's been following you like a stray cat. Criminologists still debate whether the biggest distorter of eyewitness memory is stress, time, or the media echo we all live inside now. You think about that because Harbor's Edge watched itself on the 6 o'clock news for weeks, then months, until the sound of a certain anchor's voice made people mute their TVs. Some swear that coverage created sightings that never were. Shadows were just where a breeze moved the reeds. As you pivot from the pier, the night seems to peel away in long, soft strips. You pass a row of mailboxes and imagine the envelopes that stacked up in Aunt Marie's absence coupons, a catalog, and a letter from the college about fall registration. You remember your own semester mailings and how the glossy photos of smiling students looked like alternate universes, hundreds of lives you could step into if you just changed the angle of your stride. That's how Elise looks to you, a life mid-stride. Not a ghost, not a headline. A person whose playlist might have had one guilty pleasure pop song she never admitted to. You pause at the corner where Birch meets Ocean. The town's only stoplight blinks yellow like a steady heartbeat. A cruiser rolls by, and you feel that complicated mix of comfort and tension that police cars evoke. Over the years, Harbor's Edge had suspects the way shorelines have driftwood, shapes you can turn into anything if you squint. There was the boyfriend, the coach, the reclusive painter with the convertible, and the trucker who stopped for coffee every Thursday. And always, there was Mr. Kavanaugh, who walks his terrier, Kismet, at 2 a.m., a habit he can't explain, except to say the night air keeps his lungs honest. He kept logs, pages and pages of the town's nocturnal habits, who left their porch light on, which boats chimed at which times, and when the bakery started proofing dough. Meticulous. And, yes, unsettling, but also oddly tender, like someone trying to memorize a place so it can never be stolen. You tell yourself to keep your pace gentle. You aren't here to accuse. You're here to lay the dominoes in delicate lines, the way Elise used to line up seashells by size in a jar on the Moran kitchen sill. You let another grounded fact anchor you. The first known criminal case solved with fingerprint evidence happened in Argentina in 1892, the Francisca Rojas case. Science, again, edging a candle into a dark room. But even candles throw shadows, and Harbor's Edge got used to living with this one. They built festivals around it. In a way, charity 5Ks, scholarship drives in the same way people learn to talk softly around a sleeping baby. Grief is sleeping, not gone. You feel the town stir because something new has entered the story recently, like the hint of thunder, too far off to be certain. You don't name it yet. You just let the sense of it brush the back of your neck. A box came out of storage. A cold metal drawer slid open. A technician in a lab 3 states away held up a swab to pale light and said, "Huh, you let that hang." A breath held so long it starts to tremble. Then you walk back toward number 12, and you notice a detail you've somehow never cataloged. A ceramic pelican on the porch railing, beak open, as if ready to catch stray change. Someone stuck a peppermint inside, the wrapper twisted like a signal flag. Who leaves a peppermint for a pelican? Strange, yes. But Harbor's Edge is stitched with small strangenesses that feel like stitches keeping the whole thing together. You can love a place and still recognize how weird it is in the moonlight. You square your shoulders and speak to the camera that's not there but is everywhere, the one inside each person who's listening. You promise to guide them gently. You promise not to rush the path, not to shove puzzle pieces where they don't belong. You rest your palm on the splinter-smooth railing, and, in the hush before the next tide sighs, you say the words the town has been avoiding. Sometimes, the ending isn't an ending. Sometimes the ending is a door, and it's just creaked open. You lift your eyes to that upstairs window at 2 to 19 a.m. Again, the unproven lighthouse moment. The neon digit burned into the town's collective eyelids, and you say, barely above the wind, the past is clearing its throat, and you are here to listen. You don't move right away. The street is too still, like it's holding its breath for you. Somewhere, a screen door bangs softly, and that single noise ripples through the dark like a dropped stone. You follow it, your steps gentle, your flashlight tracing the edges of the quiet. The ocean murmurs behind you, and for a moment, it sounds almost like whispering words caught in the tide that never quite reach the shore. You find yourself near the old police station, a squat brick building with windows that look tired of keeping secrets. The front door still has a faded decal of the town seal, a heron standing over waves, and the key rack inside hasn't changed in years. You've seen photos. Back when the case first broke, this building was the beating heart of Harbor's Edge. Every desk buried under reports, maps, and coffee cups. The chief at the time, Harold Kinsey, was a local, born, raised, and probably going to die here. He'd worked Elise's case with the kind of obsession that keeps a man's eyes open long past the point they should close. His daughter once said he'd tape her drawings over the missing posters just to make the room feel less like it was closing in. You stand outside now, your breath visible in the cool air. The street lamp above you flickers once, twice. That's when you remember the archived reports, dozens of them, scanned years later for a public records request. And in the margins of one, someone had scrawled 3 words in pencil. Not an accident. It wasn't the handwriting of any officer on the roster. Some locals insist it was Kinsey's final note before his sudden retirement in 2017. Others say it was the janitor, a man who disappeared 2 weeks after Elise did. You think about how towns invent ghosts from paper trails. A new sound rises, the low hum of a generator from the evidence annex. A prefab trailer still standing out back. You walk toward it. The grass crackles under your shoes, wet and brittle, and the air smells faintly of diesel. Through the window, you see rows of labeled boxes, cold case materials, maybe, or just bureaucratic fossils. But you imagine one of those boxes opening, the flap creasing with that dry sigh of cardboard, and a gloved hand pulling out a bagged item, a piece of cloth, a phone, a single hair. Whatever it is, It's humming with something alive again. Here's a piece of truth to hold in your mind. In 2020, genealogical DNA analysis, which solved the Golden State Killer case, became accessible to hundreds of police departments across the U.S. Harbor's Edge isn't a big town, but data doesn't care about size. All it needs is one match in a public database, one branch of a family tree reaching too close to the past. You wonder if that's what's happened here. If somewhere, a distant cousin spit in a tube for a fun ancestry report, and now the past is knocking on their door. You turn away from the annex and walk toward the marina. The air sharpens. The smell of brine mixes with motor oil and seaweed. The dock planks are slick, and the rope lines moan against their cleats. A pelican sits on a piling, its feathers ruffled, head tucked into its body like it's seen too much. You imagine Elise standing here, stretching before her run, her earbuds catching the faint static between songs. Maybe she noticed a boat idling longer than usual, its engine purring low. Lights off. Maybe she didn't. That's the terrible thing about memory. You never know when it stops recording. You keep moving until you reach the end of the pier. The sea glows faintly with the reflection of a distant town across the bay. Your mind wanders to that academic debate, the one about recovered memories and contamination. Some criminologists argue that repeated storytelling can alter evidence itself, that interviews conducted years apart are more performance than recollection. Others say that emotion stores detail in ways science still doesn't understand. You feel caught between those two worlds, between data and intuition, fact and fog. You lean against the rail and close your eyes for a moment. The hum of the water fills you, and you see flashes of the investigation as if you were there. The volunteers combing the dunes, the detectives hunched over maps, and the candlelight vigil where people held each other without knowing why they were crying. You see the reporter who turned Elise's name into a headline. You hear the printer in the station clattering out missing posters until the ink runs dry. You can almost feel the static in the air, the night the story went cold, when everyone silently agreed to stop asking questions out loud. Then you hear the crunch of gravel behind you. A car door opens and shuts. Footsteps approach, steady, cautious. You don't turn yet. The air thickens with recognition before you even know who it is. When you finally look, you see a face from those same old photographs. The man who walked his terrier under the moonlight. Mr. Kavanaugh. He's older now, skin translucent, eyes like pale marbles. The dog's leash dangles from his hand, empty. He nods to you, polite, as if this were just another night stroll. But his voice carries something heavier. They came by this morning, he says. The state people. They had questions about that old window. You know which one he means. Number 12. The light at 219. You wait, barely breathing. They found something in the crawl space, he adds. His mouth twitches. Almost a smile, but not quite. Said, it doesn't belong there. Your heart ticks faster, but you keep your voice calm. What did they find? He shakes his head. Didn't say. Just that it's delicate. Isri stays. In the crosstie, with personance. The word hangs there, crystalline, almost beautiful. He turns and walks away, the leash dragging softly across the boards. You're left staring at the black water, your reflection rippling and breaking. Something delicate, something hidden for 12 years. The sound of the fan from your room seems to echo in your ears like the tide itself. As you walk back toward Birch Lane, you realize the town feels lighter, not peaceful, exactly more like a wound that's finally been uncovered, able to breathe. Windows are lit here and there, silhouettes moving behind curtains. People can sense change without being told. You glance again at number 12. There's a police cruiser parked out front now, its headlights dimmed. Through the glass, you see figures moving slow, deliberate, careful. The street smells faintly of peppermint. You think of the candy in the pelican's beak and wonder who placed it there. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe it was a mark. The peppermint, the post-it, The window. The time each tiny piece of normal life that somehow became sacred in the retelling. You feel the pull of the narrative, the way humans crave pattern, but you fight it. You remind yourself that reality rarely follows symmetry. You pause at the gate. Somewhere inside, a camera shutter clicks. Evidence logged, time-stamped. For the first time, the night feels watchful, in a good way, not predatory, but alert, alive. The investigation has woken up, and you standing there, feeling the salt on your lips, know you've crossed into the part of the story where everything starts to rearrange itself. The quiet is no longer safety. It's anticipation. The clouds shift. Moonlight drapes over the house like gauze. You can almost see Elise's silhouette in that upstairs window, a trick of shadow and mind. Maybe it's just the reflection of your own flashlight beam. Or maybe, as some say, the soul lingers where the truth was buried. Behind you, the ocean sighs, long and low. Ahead, the porch light flickers once and then stays on. You stand there longer than you mean to, listening to the silence between the flickers. The porch light glows steady now, haloing the front steps of number 12 inches of pale amber haze. There's movement inside two figures, crouched near the floorboards. Another standing by the hall closet, with a clipboard. You can't hear what they're saying, but you can feel it. That quiet urgency that fills a room when something important has just been found. The kind of energy that hums through the walls, telling every nail, every flake of paint, that the story isn't finished. The officer nearest the door turns, sees you at the gate, and offers a small nod before drawing the curtains. That's it, no words, no explanation. But that's all you need to know. This house, this night, is no longer empty. You start walking again, the gravel whispering beneath your shoes. The streets of Harbor's Edge look different now. Same lampposts, same porches, same sound of the ocean brushing the seawall. But the air feels charged, like after lightning, when the world smells too clean. You realize this town has been living under the weight of that single moment 2:19 a.m. for 12 years, frozen like a frame of film stuck in a projector. And tonight, finally, the reel has started to move again. As you round the corner onto Ocean Avenue, you pass the bakery. The scent of yeast and coffee sneaks through the vents, and you think of all the mornings Elise must have walked past here on her runs, waving to the baker half asleep behind the counter. The same baker still works there. His hands have grown slower, his shoulders stooped, but every year on the anniversary, he leaves a paper cup of hot cocoa on the pier, just in case. You think about how kindness becomes ritual when grief runs out of language. You stop by the town notice board, the one where that mysterious pink post-it once appeared. The board is crowded now with flyers, a missing cat, a church bake sale, and a lost set of keys. But near the corner, a new sheet flaps lightly in the breeze. It's blank, except for a typed date in the middle. November 8. No name, no message, just a date. You run your thumb across the tack, holding it in place, and your stomach tightens. November 8 today. A car slows as it passes. You catch the reflection of blue and red lights in its windshield, muted by the mist. Something big is happening inside that yellow house. Maybe evidence. Maybe confession. You'll find out soon enough. But for now, the town is alive with whispers. Phone screens lighting up in dark bedrooms. Neighbors peering through blinds. A collective heartbeat picking up tempo after a decade of rest. You cut through the narrow path behind the bait shop. The boards creak like memory. Out here, the wind sharpens, tugging at your sleeves. The water glints with the sodium glow of the dock lamps, and you can see your breath drift away in soft clouds. Drift clouds. There's a gull perched on a piling, watching you with glassy patience, like it's been waiting for you to notice something. And you do, because there, wedged in the cracks between the boards, is something small and glinting. You crouch, reach out carefully, and pull it free. A single charm, silver, shaped like a compass. The edges are tarnished, and the chain snapped. It's not much, just a trinket. But in your palm, it feels heavier than it should. You remember from one of the case reports that Elise wore a charm bracelet. The detail had been almost throwaway, a line buried deep in the file. You turn the charm over. The back is engraved with a tiny initial, E. The night folds in around you. You can almost hear the faint strains of her playlist again. The rhythm of sneakers on wood. The breath against the wind. The town is starting to speak, and the tide carries its voice straight to you. You head back toward the main road, and as you do, your mind drifts to a historical thread, something you read once. In 1980, the first official cold case unit in the United States was formed in Los Angeles. It was built on a single idea that time, instead of erasing truth, might eventually deliver it back if someone was patient enough to listen. Harbor's Edge, in its own quiet way, has become part of that lineage tonight. You see the station ahead, windows glowing faint blue from inside. Reporters are already gathering near the steps, the way moths circle a lamp. You hear fragments of questions, the hiss of radios, and the metallic click of camera shutters. The Chief Kinsey's successor steps out and reads from a small note card. Her voice is calm and precise, the kind that could anchor a storm. At approximately 8:47 p.m., she says, "Detectives, acting on new evidence, executed a warrant at 12 Birch Lane. We have recovered items believed to be connected to the disappearance of Elise Moran. A suspect is in custody. Further details will be released pending confirmation." You don't hear the name. The crowd swallows it. Or maybe the sea wind takes it first. But you feel it, like a tremor in your ribs, the sense that after years of silence, the earth has finally shifted under Harbor's Edge. You back away from the station, letting the reporters swarm closer. You walk toward the pier again, past the same bench, the same brass plaque, and the same rhythm of the tide. Nothing's really changed, and yet everything has. You imagine the Morans asleep somewhere tonight, the kind of sleep that comes after endless waiting thin, cautious, almost unbelieving. The air carries a detail you almost miss. Peppermint again. Someone's unwrapped another candy, maybe out of nervousness. The scent drifts around you, faint but deliberate. You smile, realizing that even in a story like this, the strange little constants remain tiny acts of humanity that tether us to the world when it starts spinning too fast. The wind picks up, and the fan in your room hums faintly in your memory, blending with the sound of the surf. The case might be over. Or maybe it's just beginning. In every solved mystery, there's a shadow of another question just out of reach. You lean on the railing one last time, eyes tracing the black horizon. The moon has risen higher now, its reflection rippling across the water like the thin line between what's known and what's imagined. Somewhere behind you, a siren whoops softly. Not urgent, just procedural. Harbor's Edge exhales as though it's been holding its breath for 12 long years. And you standing here, hands cold, heart full, feel something close to peace. Not closure, not yet, but peace enough to listen to the waves, to let the questions rest for one night, to finally whisper into the dark. Maybe someday we'll know the truth. But for now, sleep well.